Jaws 2 from 1978. Happy 4th of July, everybody. Although, unlike Jaws 1, Jaws 2 has absolutely nothing to do with the 4th of July. It's not even mentioned. But I've already done a video for Jaws 1, so you're getting Jaws 2. And this is actually the only Jaws movie that I haven't covered yet. I'm not sure why I decided to skip it and go right to Jaws 3 and 4. I guess it's because Jaws 3 and 4 have a lot of goofy stuff to make fun of. But while Jaws 2 is clearly the best of the three Jaws sequels, I still think there's a few funny moments that are worth talking about. And for me personally, I just was never super into Jaws 2. To me, there's only one truly great Jaws movie, and that's the original from 1975. Jaws 2 is just sort of a strange sequel. It's not terrible by any means, but it's also not great, and there are way too many characters in it. It's almost hard to keep track of them all. Part of what worked about the first Jaws movie was the simplicity of it. 3 main characters, plus Brody's wife and the mayor, and that's kind of it. But Jaws 2 has way more characters, and most of them are teenagers, which weirdly makes it feel like more of a slasher movie. Even though there's no final girl, there's several final characters. Too many, I would argue. But one good thing about it is that Roy Scheider returns as Martin Brody, even though he didn't want to. He was just under contract and had to do the movie. But I'm grateful for that because it would be a lot worse without him. And ultimately, it's just another instance of a massive great white shark attacking the people of Amity Island. I don't think this one is motivated by revenge, though, like the sharks in Jaws 3 and 4. It seems to be just a lot of random attacks. But who knows? Maybe this is just another member of the shark gang trying to avenge his fallen comrade. It's like Martin Brody is Elliot Ness, and the sharks are like members of Al Capone's crew.
I want him dead. I want his family dead. I want his house burnt to the ground. I want to go to the middle of the night. I want to piss on his ashes.
But anyway, I think we should just get into it. Jaws 2 from 1978. Directed by Jano Schwartz. Starring contractually obligated Roy Scheider, Murray Hamilton, and Lorraine Gary. The movie opens up on some divers. They seem to be exploring the wreck of the Orca, Quint's boat from the first movie. One of them is taking pictures, and of course, they're attacked by a shark. How shocking. And somehow the camera takes pictures of the shark attack even though the victim is no longer holding it. I guess that's just how scary the shark is. Even the camera is freaked out. And then it jumps over to Chief Brody, who is rushing to a ceremony for the opening of a new hotel in Amity, I think. Why there's a ceremony for a hotel opening up, I'll never know. But there's a banner that says, Holiday Inn Amity Shores Grand Opening Ball, Amity Scholarship Fund Benefit. I mean, do you think it might be a little wordy? I think so. I'm not entirely sure what the fuck it even means. But it doesn't matter, because Mayor Larry Vaughn is here. He's somehow still the mayor. I guess there was very little political fallout for his complete denial and borderline cover-up of the freakish shark that was killing everyone in the first movie. But at least he's decided to retire his horrendous anchor suit jacket. And I suppose we can be thankful for that. Although, the jacket he chose to wear instead is really not any better. I mean, it looks like ludicrous speed threw up all over him. And the more I look at it, the more I wish it was the anchor suit jacket. And we also meet his son, Larry Jr., and Miss Amity, Tina Wilcox. It seems like every young male on this island has it bad for Tina Wilcox. I don't know why I'm mentioning it, though, because it's not really a factor. And the next day, all the teenagers on the island are heading out on sailboats. Sailboats are a major thing in this movie, which is a little strange to me because I don't think I saw one damn sailboat in the first movie. But there's a ton of them in this one. Which, fair enough. Amity is an island. I just didn't realize that it had such a deep sailboating culture. And one of the characters that is introduced is Jackie Peters. Mike Brody seems to have a crush on her. By the way, this is Mike Brody. And Larry Vaughn Jr. says that Jackie has tits like a sparrow. I mean, what the fuck does that even mean? I know he's trying to say that she's like flat-chested or whatever, but it doesn't make sense. It's extra confusing when you consider that a sparrow and a tit are both birds. You know, he could have said she has sparrows like a tit, and it would have made the same exact amount of 0 sense. Anyway, they all head out sailing. And it kind of jumps over to a scene near a lighthouse where a woman is driving a motorboat and there's another person water skiing behind it. She ends up falling in the water, and the woman driving the boat circles back to look for her, but she's gone. And then the shark shows up and attacks the boat. And this lady could not have handled this situation any worse. What the fuck, right? I have so many questions. Why did she pick up a can of gasoline? Why was it open? And why did she dump it all over herself and then decide to fire a flare gun and explode herself to smithereens? Even the shark has to be fucking confused by this course of action. Like, what the fuck, lady? I'm just trying to eat. You didn't have to dump the motorboating equivalent of a nuclear bomb on us. And obviously, the lady is dead, but the shark survived. And he has a big burn on his face. So now he's literally like a James Bond villain. So that's nice. And everyone is trying to figure out what happened to this boat. They just saw it explode for seemingly no reason. Deputy Hendricks searches the area of the wreck and accidentally surfaces a giant power line, which I guess obviously provides power to the island. This is basically some foreshadowing, so put a pin in that for now. In the meantime, a camera was recovered from the attack on the divers who were exploring the wreck of the Orca, and Brody wants the film developed. He also heads to the beach, where the carcass of a killer whale has washed up on the shore, which I gotta wonder if this is this movie's retort to Orca, the killer whale, which came out a few years prior to this, and that movie was sort of a Jaws ripoff. But with a whale instead of a shark, obviously. Bo Derek gets her leg bitten off in that one. Tragic. But this is also another crazy moment in the Jaws franchise because I don't think great white sharks can take out orcas. I think it's normally the other way around. I mean, they're called killer whales for a reason. They're not to be trifled with. Watch out for Free Willy. He's a badass. In any case, Brody seems fairly certain that all of these events were caused by a shark. The attack on the divers, the boat explosion, and the dead whale. He doesn't have a lot of evidence to support this. He hasn't even discovered a dead body yet. But he's taken out one giant shark before, so it makes sense that he might be concerned about another one. Even though the shark in the original Jaws, if it was real, would have to be considered such a freak of nature that the idea of there being more like it is pretty ludicrous. But whatever. And Brody has an expert take a look at the whale, and she's obviously not Matt Hooper. He's apparently busy in the ocean, which is just a cover story because we all know that he went up in a big spaceship with a bunch of aliens. Anyway, the replacement expert thinks the attack on the whale was either another orca or a great white shark. But she also says that the bites weren't immediately fatal for the whale, which is hard to believe considering it looks as though it's been disemboweled. I also think it's really funny that the whale has just one raised fin, almost like it's signaling for help. Hey guys, can you help me? I'm pretty fucked up. So Brody goes to see Mayor Vaughn to tell him that they have another shark problem. And that goes over about as well as you would expect. Vaughn doesn't buy it. And to be fair, Brody doesn't have a lot of evidence. He's got some missing divers, a recovered camera, an exploded boat, and a dead whale. I mean, is that enough to close the beaches again? And even if it is a shark, what are they going to do? Close the beaches every time one comes around? I mean, sharks live in the ocean. It's a risk we all have to take. But of course, the risk is far greater in the universe of Jaws. And Vaughn counters Brody's concerns by saying they have a lot of deaths in these waters. Are they all sharks? And Brody says, maybe they are. I mean, first of all, why do they have a lot of deaths in these waters? Why is that happening? And so what if they do? So Vaughn is like, oh, come on, people die in these waters all the time. What's the big deal? And Brody is like, it's all sharks. They're both kind of being a little silly in this scene. So Brody leaves, frustrated, and he's driving along a beach, and he sees some kind of wooden plank floating in the water. He fishes it out, and there's a burned body of a woman stuck to it. The same woman who blew herself up in the boat, obviously. So now Brody thinks he has some evidence. I don't know why exploding boat means shark to Martin Brody. I mean, he is right, but based on the evidence at hand, he shouldn't know this yet. He heads back to the police station, and he starts putting sodium cyanide on his bullets, kind of in the hollow point of the bullet. Forgive me, firearm terminology is not really my thing, so correct me if I'm wrong, but he's putting sodium cyanide on his bullets, and he's sealing it with candle wax. I don't know what's going on here. I assume he is preparing to possibly poison the shark by shooting it. The shark that he doesn't know is even real yet. And would this even do anything? I doubt it. The odds of him even hitting the shark with this gun are pretty astronomical. And contrary to what every action movie has told us, bullets don't really travel all that well underwater. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I guess it's just there to show Brody's paranoia. And the next day, he's watching the waters on a crowded beach from a tower with binoculars. And Mayor Vaughn is pissed. He doesn't like the idea of anyone being on the lookout for sharks, apparently. Some woman asks what Brody is doing up there, and her kid says it's a shark tower. He's looking for sharks. And that makes Vaughn and some of the other people on the beach very nervous. I don't know why. I don't know about you, but I think I'd feel safer knowing that someone is on the lookout for sharks. But for some reason, this is causing a problem. And although it's not actually a problem, it does become one because Brody thinks he sees something in the water. He rings the bell and calls for everyone to get out of the water. It's mass panic. Everyone's freaking out. He runs towards the shoreline and starts shooting at a school of bluefish. He fires all 6 of his cyanide shots into the ocean towards a school of bluefish. And he even attempts to reload, but the lifeguard tells him that it's just bluefish. And everyone looks at Brody like he's lost his damn mind, and I can't blame them. This is kind of inexcusable. Firing a gun on a beach full of people is really not good. But at the same time, I kind of like this scene because it shows that Brody is messed up. The events of the first movie obviously had a very profound effect on him, which makes sense. A guy got eaten by a freakishly gigantic shark right in front of his eyes. That has to change a person. And Sean Brody comes over to help his dad pick up the bullet casings, which is a nice scene. Although I don't know if I would let my hypothetical kid handle anything that was even close to a few drops of sodium cyanide. Regardless, Brody heads back to the police station to sulk. And he gets a phone call about the missing camera that was recovered. The film has been developed. He goes to take a look at it, and he thinks he finally has the irrefutable evidence of a shark attack. He goes to the town hall, and the mayor is in a meeting with some other aspiring bureaucrats. He shows them all these pictures, but they say they can't see anything of note. And once again, I kind of can't blame them. It's not a very clear picture, and it's not as though I want to be on Mayor Vaughn's side at all. I think he's an idiot. But Brody knows from experience that this mayor isn't going to believe him unless he sees some real proof. Last time, he needed to see a shark attack in person in order for him to finally get it. And Brody just doesn't have any evidence of a definitive shark attack yet. And Brody tells them that he knows what a shark looks like, which is kind of funny because I think everyone kind of knows what a shark looks like. But whatever. They've decided to fire Brody from his job as chief of police in Amity. Tragic. So Brody decides to get drunk and head home. He tells Ellen that he blew it, which I think is putting it mildly. I mean, he's kind of lucky he wasn't arrested. And Ellen also asks him why he was fired, which I think is fucking insane, because she was on the beach when he was shooting his gun like a maniac. In any case, the next morning, Mike heads out to go sailing. And he has to bring Sean with him because Sean blackmails him into taking him. They meet up with some friends and head out on several sailboats. Meanwhile, Brody has his morning coffee, no doubt hoping that it will cure his hangover. And you can see a boom mic pretty clearly in this scene. So that's nice. And he goes with Ellen to clean out his office at the police station. And there's a bunch of beer cans just sitting on the lawn in front of his car. So, casual drunk driving. It is the 70s. What can you do? And on their way, Brody sees an ambulance. He goes to check it out, and they see that a diver has suffered an embolism. He was attacked by a shark, and he surfaced too quickly. Deputy Hendricks, who is now the sheriff, says that it happened not long after all the kids went out sailing. And he tells Martin and Ellen that Mike was among them. So Brody takes the police boat along with Ellen and the new sheriff to go look for them. And Tina Wilcox is out on her boat, which is called Tina's Joy. It seems weird to me that these 17, 18, 19-year-olds all have boats of their own. In this economy, no less. But anyway, Tina is with her boyfriend Eddie, no relation. And they seem to have strayed from the other sailboats. They're alone. And it seems like Tina and Eddie are going to have sex, but Tina tells Eddie to get the blanket because she says she has black and blue marks all over her butt and her mom is starting to get uptight about it. I have questions. First of all, why is her mom looking at her butt? That's a conundrum on its own. And what kind of sex are these two having? Where have they been banging? On a couch made of claw hammers? I don't get it. And how is this blanket going to mitigate these mysterious black and blue marks? I don't know. Either way, it doesn't matter because the shark shows up and attacks the boat. Eddie falls in, and Tina is the one calling for Eddie to help her, which is bizarre. He's the one in the water. He's the one in immediate danger, but she's like, Eddie, help me. And Eddie tries to swim to the boat, but of course, the shark gets him, leaving Tina alone and traumatized. No idea why she's somehow safe from the shark in this glorified dinghy. I mean, this is the same shark that just chewed up a motorboat not that long ago. And the shark from the original movie managed to sink Quint's boat. But for some reason, this particular giant shark can't get you in a two-person sailboat. Okay, moving on. And meanwhile, Brody radios in and asks for a police chopper to join their search. And not long after that, they come across Tina's Joy, which is no longer joyous. They discover Tina, who is in a state of shock. We know this because she's overacting. And she tells them that she was attacked by a shark. So between this and the diver with an embolism, Brody's worst fear is confirmed. Finally. I mean, it took long enough. So he signals a nearby ship and makes Tina, Hendricks, and Ellen get on board and head back into shore while Brody continues the search in the police boat. Meanwhile, the shark finds the rest of the sailboating teens and attacks them. The kid from Stephen King's Christine falls in the water. His boat sinks, but he somehow survives and makes it onto one of the other boats. Mike falls in the water and he's knocked out. A couple of the other kids manage to pull him onto a boat just as the shark attacks, and you can see the hydraulic mechanics inside the shark's mouth. So this is not just a shark. This is a robot shark. It's the fucking Terminator. This is really the only explanation. Either that or this is just a movie that was directed by a filmmaker who is not on the level of Steven Spielberg. It's okay. It happens. Very few directors are. And it seems like most of the remaining sailboats have been crippled by the shark, except for one, which is going to take Mike to a doctor, which makes sense. But what doesn't make sense is that they don't also take Sean with them. I can't figure that out for the life of me. I mean, this little kid's brother was just injured. Why wouldn't they take him? I mean, he's just a little boy. I don't get it. Either way, Sean and the remaining kids are stranded, and it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot to keep them from getting eaten. They're barely afloat as it is. Another attack would definitely finish them off, but for some reason, the shark leaves them alone, at least until the helicopter pilot, who looks like a descendant of Abraham Lincoln, shows up. He lands in the water, but the shark attacks the helicopter and drags it under, which is kind of shocking. I mean, this fucking thing can pull an entire helicopter underwater, but these kids, with their plot armor, are relatively safe on basically what amounts to a floating raft. I don't get it. But the shark takes another shot at these rickety rafts, and Sean falls in the water, and then a character named Marge jumps in to rescue him. And honestly, it feels like she just appeared out of thin air, because I have no idea who this character is supposed to be. But she does get Sean back on the boat. Unfortunately, she can't save herself. The shark eats her. Tragic. Rest in peace, Marge. We barely knew you. Actually, we didn't know you. Who the fuck are you? There's too many non-character characters in this movie. And of course, everyone is like, oh no, not Marge. Like, we're supposed to be like emotionally attached to this glorified extra. Either way, she did die a hero, so that's nice. And Jackie starts freaking the fuck out, and get used to that, because she'll be doing it for the remainder of the movie. And some other girl, who seems to have also appeared out of thin air, starts praying, as you do. And Brody comes across a sailboat that is carrying Mike to safety. Mike is conscious now, and he seems to be okay. He tells his dad that Sean is still out there, and that he wanted to come along. He says, it was okay, wasn't it? No, Mike. None of this is okay. Go get your head examined, because you obviously need it. You got to make sure you're in good shape, because in a couple years, despite the fact that you're only 17 now, you'll be a 30-year-old Dennis Quaid at SeaWorld. How exciting. Anyway, the mangled sailboats are approaching a small island called Junction. It's basically just a bunch of rocks. Maybe this is the place where Eddie and Tina have been doing their banging. And it seems like if they can just make it a few more yards to the island, they'll be okay. But the boats are apparently stuck on the bottom. I mean, if that's true, they should just be able to walk to the island. But they can't. Because Jackie starts having a complete meltdown. And Larry Vaughn Jr. gets violently angry with her.
It's that thing, I know, and it's gonna kill us! It's gonna kill us now! I know.
Jackie, shut up!
No, it's gonna kill us!
Shut up!
It's gonna kill us!
Shut up!
No, leave her alone!
Jackie, shut up!
It's gonna kill us!
Shut up! Then you take care of her! You take care of her!
Look, Larry, she's hysterical. Beating her head in is not...
Sit down!
Holy shit, right? I mean, I don't know what everyone's problem is. There's a lot of acting happening here. And it kind of reminds me of that scene from Airplane.
I've got to get out of here. I've got to get out of here. Calm down. Get a hold of yourself.
Stewardess, please let me handle this.
I've got to get
Calm down. Now get back to your seat. I'll take care of this. Calm down. Calm down. Get a hold of yourself.
Doctor, you're wanted on the phone. Everything's gonna be all right. Please.
Sister, please, I'll handle this.
Yourself.
I've got to get out of here.
Apparently, back in the day, people treated anxiety with horrific, unpredictable violence. And as you can see, they are like 3 feet from land. What is the problem? You have made it. And Brody approaches. Everyone thinks they're saved, but the shark attacks before Brody can rescue them. And for some reason, Brody just floors it and crashes his boat into the rocks. It's actually kind of funny. Like, oh, the shark is here. Fuck this, I'm out of here. And he decides to use the winch to try to pull the sailboats towards the island. But it gets caught on the power line. So you can see where this is going. The shark attacks once more. Jackie loses whatever is left of her mind. And most of the kids fall in the water. They swim over to the rocks. The shark seems to swim right past one of the characters. No idea why she didn't get eaten. This was the girl who was praying before, so maybe it worked. Or, after eating poor Marge, the shark has decided that it would rather eat one of the main characters for once. Who knows? So all the kids make it safely to the rocky shoreline of the island, but Sean and Jackie are still stuck on the sailboat. Brody hops in a goofy-looking rubber dinghy with the power line in tow. He gets the shark's attention by smacking the power line with an oar, and it attacks Brody. And then this happens. Well, that was pretty ridiculous, was it not? The shark has been electrocuted, and all I can think is how much that must stink. And the line by Brody is just laughable. Say ah, like you're a shark dentist. It's not exactly smile, you son of a bitch, which, is one of the most badass fucking lines I think I've ever heard. Say ah is just, kind of terrible. Anyway, Brody rescues Sean and Jackie, and the movie ends as they row towards land in this dumbass dinghy. The end. Overall, not terrible, but not great. It's very similar to the first movie in a lot of ways. It hits a lot of the same beats, but the suspense just isn't there. The first movie was just brilliant at building suspense and delivering, but this movie really doesn't do that. And I just think the ending is kind of goofy. And the sheer amount of teenage characters really makes me think of a late 70s, early 80s slasher movie, although it predates that craze by several months. John Carpenter's Halloween was released later on that year, but contrary to popular belief, Halloween is far from the first slasher movie. But then again, in some ways, Jaws 2 is not at all like a slasher movie because almost nobody dies. Nobody of consequence dies anyway, outside of Eddie and Marge, 2 characters that you don't even realize are in the movie until they're dead. Like I said, there's just too many characters in this movie. The group of friends that Mike hangs out with could have been much smaller. And Mayor Larry Vaughn continues to be a fascinating character to me because although he is hateable in both movies, in the second movie, I kind of get where he's coming from. There's not a lot of evidence of a shark attack. Brody comes to him with a recovered camera with distorted pictures on it, an exploded boat, and a dead whale. None of that would tell me that we have a shark to worry about. But the funny thing about Mayor Vaughn is that he's this unlikable character, but he never has to pay the piper. He has no comeuppance. He lives through both movies, and his career doesn't even take a hit. Even his asshole son survives. Honestly, he should run for president. Nothing can touch this guy. Except perhaps a halfway decent looking suit. And if there's one great thing about Jaws 2, it's gotta be Roy Scheider as Martin Brody. Without him, the movie would really be uninteresting to me. He makes it worth watching because I think the Brody character is just great. I really love that he's a hero, but he's a terrified hero. And I think overcoming your own personal fears is in some way one of the most heroic things a person can do. And we get to see Brody do that in both movies, which is really great. But other than that, I think it just pales in comparison to the first movie. Although, to be fair, most movies in general pale in comparison to the first Jaws movie. So I try not to hold it against Jaws 2. And I think both of these movies do a great job of giving you that summertime feel. It's hard to describe, but when I watch Jaws 1 and Jaws 2, I feel like I can almost smell the salt water. It just screams summer to me. These movies remind me a little bit of some of the beaches on Long Island, where I live. So I'll always have a soft spot for the fictional town of Amity for that reason. But anyway, that's about all I have to say about this one. Let me know what you think of Jaws 2, and happy 4th of July weekend. I hope everyone who celebrates is having a good time. And until next time, take it easy.
But as you see, it's a beautiful day. The beaches are open, and people are having a wonderful time. Amity, as you know, means friendship.